Welcome to our LinkedIn segment with Ratnika Prasad. Ratnika, why don't you quickly introduce yourself and then we'll jump into questions related to careers in environmental science, sustainability, and what's out there in the field and what's happening.
Sure. Hey everyone, my name is Ratnika Prasad. So I currently work as an associate director within a team called Market Lab at the Nature Conservancy, which is one of the biggest environmental nonprofits in the world. And my job involves designing, scaling, and launching market-based conservation projects. I have a long history in terms of my interest in sustainability. So long back when I started working with Arjun, I was really interested in studying in the US because I was interested in studying sustainability topics. And I ended up coming to Cornell, where I studied environmental science and environmental economics. I then went on to work briefly in consulting and then go to grad school at Harvard, where I did a joint master's in economics and an MBA. And since then, have been working full-time in sustainability. So previously, I was a director at the Environmental Defense Fund, which is another large environmental nonprofit. And now I'm in my current role at the Nature Conservancy.
So you've seen it, sort of this whole idea of engagement, building communities, doing research on topics which are so diverse and so many different lenses could be used, so many different skill sets could be applied in the field. How would you broadly sort of categorize sort of skill sets and jobs that kind of can be explored by students listening in?
Yeah, so it has to be a broad categorization simply because, as you said, the field is so complex that you can approach it in many, many different ways. A couple of ways you could frame it is one is by topic area. So yes, sustainability, but within that, you could work on energy. For instance, there's a lot of momentum around how we move the world to renewable energy. You could work in transport with electric vehicles. You could work on buildings. You could work on biodiversity. So there's just like a field of specialty within sustainability that alone could be a big way to specialize. And then the second way to think about it is the type of role. It could be within the private sector or the public sector or nonprofit sector. I previously worked in investing. In my internships, I worked at the World Bank, and now I work in a nonprofit role. And then the other way to think about it then would be specialty, right? So what is it that you do? You could do strategy, you could do operations, you could do research, you could be in a data analysis role, both mapping analysis as well as statistical analysis. Or you could be pre-law or post-law school and be at the forefront of crafting regulation.
So pretty much any discipline, could be humanities, sciences, legal studies. It's just a very open and growing field, and there are job opportunities. But I think hearing from you as to what excited you most and how has your career trajectory in the environmental science, applications of environmental science, and now business and economics sort of panned out. What excites you even today?
A lot excites me today because I think we're living in a very interesting time where there's finally more of a mass understanding that we need to solve these challenges. And that's really mobilized finance, entrepreneurial energy, as well as massive public action on this. But there's still a lot that needs to be done. When I first started out, partly biased because my father was in the Indian Forest Service, I used to think that the best way to go at these challenges was to work in government or to work in some kind of big organization. Ironically, I am now at a big organization, but I'm actually in their market making accelerator part. And over the course of my journey, I've worked in a startup as well. I worked on the private sector side, advising companies on sustainability. And so you can really take any of these roles. And I'd say the important thing is to recognize they all play a big part in moving ahead the challenges that we face today, right? I have personally not worked in a role where one could be a scientist discovering some of the solutions we need, but that's yet another exciting role that you see more and more people going into.
What are the big challenges that you feel you could invest your time and your skills sort of focusing forward, going forward?
Yeah, so partly why I'm in my current role is because I think there's a sweet spot we're at in that there are lots of problems we face in the world today where the challenge isn't a technological or a scientific gap. Like we have existing solutions to fix these problems, but for a variety of reasons, the regulatory side, the private sector side, and like I would say the supply chain often just don't come together to solve it in a way that would be sustainable. And so the way to fix that is often just having somebody that can strategically understand all the sides and help bring together all the players to sort of fix the broken supply chain, if you will. And that's what my team at Market Lab does. Like we recognize that there are lots of challenges where the issue isn't that the science isn't advanced enough or that there is an existing financial capability. It's just that you need to design interventions so that the market can start functioning properly. To give you one example, one of the projects we've completed recently is based around whether you can use insurance mechanisms to help reduce the risk of wildfire. And there, a lot of factors aligned, like wildfires are increasingly a big problem in the US. A lot of people often live in zones where their houses can burn down, they themselves might be at risk. And we've actually started working with insurance companies as well as the government to think about how you can use insurance mechanisms to help move people out of harm's way and incentivize them to live in safer areas, and also to use the money to manage the forest in a way that reduces the wildfire risk. So none of this was creating new things. It was more about creating new mechanisms to make everything work together.
Thank you, Ratnika. I think that's a very deep overview of opportunities students have in this space. So lovely catching up, and look forward to following your journey henceforth. Bye for now.
Thank you.